Good morning, everyone. I am Councilmember Luis Vieira, Chair of the HART Board of Directors. Please silence all electronic devices for the duration of the meeting. Welcome to the April 3rd, 2023 regular Board of Directors meeting, which is now called to order. The meeting format is hybrid with board members physically present at the HART Administrative Office at 1201 East 7th Avenue, Florida Conference Room, and participating via media technology. Please, if you would, stand if you're able to do so and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republics for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Attendance, please.
Chair Vieira.
Here.
Director Owen. Director Williams. Director Castor. Director Frazier.
Here.
Director Hudson.
Here.
Director Johnson.
Here.
Director Kemp. Director Knight. Director Myers.
Here.
Director Schisler.
Here.
Director Wolstall.
Here.
You do have a quorum, sir.
Added in the packet. And next, let's see if there's any public comment. The rules for public comment participation are included in your packets. There are 2 people scheduled to speak. Staff, please proceed in facilitating public comment.
The first member of the public to speak is Jesus Perez Garcia, and he is on, he's remotely attending.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Chair Vieira, Board, Mr. Drainbill, fellow teammates and members of the public, name is Jesus, HART staff. Sorry I couldn't be there in person today. I hope my public comments are not getting old. I do not know everything, far from it, but oftentimes this board appears to need a reality check, and I'm happy to take a stab at it. Also, if my comments come across as harsh, that's partially the point. HART staff and customers depend heavily on your actions. We need you to bring your A game, always, please. I don't care who sits at the throne to the right of the chairperson. As I've said before, my only allegiance lies with our customers, the community, and my 800 teammates. As such, I would like to caution this board and our interim CEO. First, congeniality is a two-way street. Regardless of Legrand, the fracture goes much deeper than just the one person. Let's keep monitoring the work environment. We all gotta be as good at listening as we are at speaking. Second, Mr. Drainbill, welcome to the Hunger Games. Be careful. This board has a track record. On average, and according to history, you have about 12 to 18 months to do something good with this place until we go back to the drama that allegedly ended last week. Next up, priorities. Last week's meeting is an excellent example of how we need this board to always behave. As directors of HART, your duty is to direct HART, but you cannot do that if you don't have a compass yourself. When Mr. Drainbill was appointed as interim, you were so active, nimble, and engaged that you asked very specific questions. Have we empowered you enough? Should we increase your salary? Cool beans. Remember though, we have bigger fish to fry. You need to always be as engaged as you were with the powers and compensation of the interim leader. It took about 30 minutes to complete the whole leadership transition, while other things that would improve customer experience take 3 or more months. So you are always briefed. For everybody else's reference, board members are briefed prior to every meeting. So you cannot act like we're springing stuff on you at the last minute. It just delays stuff without need. Similarly, our friends from Holland and Knight, they were on the call for the past 2 or 3 meetings, and you finally heard them last week. So compare, on one side, needing more info and constantly postponing important action items because you are in a rush to leave, with B, swift approval of a raise for the interim CEO, hence my frustration. That's why I yelled no from the audience when the board was about to postpone all presentations yet again. Yeah, I'll rein it in. Won't happen again. I'm truly sorry, Chair Vieira. But it wasn't to be unruly. That's how frustrated many of us are with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Next one, please.
The next member of the public to speak was Daniel Bright, but I don't see him on the line. So
Okay,
I do not think he's in the member of the audience either.
great. Anyone else here for public comment? Okay. Sorry. Okay, seeing no further comments, we will move on. Next agenda item is approval of the meeting minutes from the February 6th, 2023 regular Board of Directors meeting, which was held on March 6th of 2023, and the March 27th, 2023 special Board of Directors meeting. Is there a motion to
So
approve the
moved.
minutes?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Kemp, seconded by Councilman Schisler. Roll call, please.
Chair Viera,
Yes.
Director Owen,
Yes.
Director Williams, Director Castor,
Yes.
Director Frazier.
Yes.
Director Hudson,
Yes.
Director Johnson,
Yes.
Director Kemp,
Yes.
Director Knight, Director Myers.
Yes.
Director Schisler.
Yes.
Director Woolstle.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Next, the Finance and Audit Committee held a meeting in a hybrid format on March 20th of 2023 to review action items 4A through 4E and forwarded them to the full Board of Directors for approval. Additional information was provided for resolution number R2023-04-10 following the meeting. Are there any questions on these items? Okay, there being none, is there a motion to approve these items?
So moved.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Kemp, or strike that, we have a motion by Commissioner Kemp, seconded by Councilman Schisler. Roll call, please.
Chair Viera,
Yes.
Director Owen,
Yes.
Director Castor,
Yes.
Director Frazier.
Yes.
Director Hudson,
Yes.
Director Johnson,
Yes.
Director Kemp,
Yes.
Director Myers,
Yes.
Director Schisler,
Yes.
Director Woolstle.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving along with vigor, we go to the Interim Chief Executive Officer's report. Mr. Drainville, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I did prepare a brief statement. But before I do that statement, I did want to bring something to the board's attention. Last Monday at the board meeting, the board voted to approve a resolution that gives the authority to solicit for state and federal legislative services. With that approval, the board is required to appoint an ad hoc committee to oversee the selection process. And that requirement is in accordance with the board-adopted procurement manual. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention.
So with regards to this committee, is it something that falls under, do I appoint those folks, or?
So I've asked General Counsel.
Okay.
I know what we have done in the past with some of these ad hoc committees is if you actually used one of the committees, for example, when we did the ad hoc committee, you just went ahead and used the finance committee. So I don't know if you would like to just go ahead and utilize the strategic planning committee for the ad hoc committee, or you would like to appoint other members. You have the authority to do it either way.
Okay. How about this? Do we need the appointment made today, or maybe we do it tomorrow?
Yeah, I don't believe we need it today.
Okay. How about if I made Julia, let's talk on it tomorrow? I'd probably go with the first option, but we can talk about it offline. Does anyone from the board have any thoughts before? Yes, sir.
I would just want to recuse myself as a former employee of Holland and Knight to not be on the ad hoc committee since I'm on the strategic planning one, but that's
Okay.
it.
Noted. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, great. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
So again, I just wanted to state that it's my honor to have been chosen by the HART Board of Directors to lead our team during this challenging time. My commitment to each of you is to be a steady hand as we all navigate through the coming weeks. Over the last week, I've made a concerted effort to meet with staff, and I will continue to do so to address any concerns and reinforce stability within this agency. I understand that HART is facing a number of fiscal, legislative, and administrative challenges, but I am committed to leading this organization with the help of the HART employees, the support of the board, and the community, and not to lose sight of our number one priority, which is to deliver the best service that we possibly can to the customers in the community. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any comments or questions for Mr. Drainville? Okay. Thank you, sir. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Drainville. Appreciate that, sir. Okay, next we move onward to our chair's report. I got two things I wanted to update folks on. Number one was our trip to Tallahassee, which I left for on think it was Wednesday night, like at 7:30, and I drive like I'm 93 years old, so I got there like at 12:30 or so. So I am a very slow driver and whatnot, and I was able to meet with a lot of stakeholders on Thursday and whatnot. I thought it went really, really well. I met with, among other folks, State Senator Jay Collins, State Representative Bobby Payne, State Senator Danny Burgess, State Representative McClure, State Representative Danny Alvarez, and a number of other folks. Spoke briefly with Director or Mr. Gwynn with FDOT, who of course I'd known before because I did my 3 years of tour of duty on the MPO. So obviously I know him, very nice gentleman. And I thought the meeting and the talks went very, very well. I guess my message to them was that we're not here in an antagonistic sense. I wanted to make sure that we took off the table the whole idea, the notion, and I think the fiction, that this is something of a partisan issue in any way. This is not Tampa versus Tallahassee or anything of that nature, God forbid, that I'm over there in a collaborative way, and that I personally took, and I think I got the feeling from the board, that the idea of a study was in of itself a welcome gesture to take a look at some of the issues where we can be empowered to be good fiscal stewards of pivotal tax dollars, or where we can promote transparency, accountability, and take in ideas from Tallahassee. I think something that's very, very important in terms of me, Luis Vieira, I promoted the idea that we need to preserve, obviously, that funding mechanism for HART, for our riders, our passengers, et cetera. That's something that's so very important, and preserve HART. I don't think that's controversial in this room, but I did give that message. But that, again, I'm here in that we're all here in a collaborative, collegial way. This is not something that's adversarial, and that message, I think, was very, very well received. The message that I got, in summary, again, there were deviations, 20 degrees to the left, 20 degrees to the right, et cetera, on it, is that the message was well received, and that folks want to work with us to preserve our mission, but that there are obvious, challenges that we have that I think our friends in Tallahassee wanted to make known to us. So it went very, very well. I also invited some of the state representatives and state senators to meet with our employees, to come in for, I'm having town halls once or twice a month with our employees, because obviously there's a lot of challenges there, et cetera, and to have them come and speak with them, because I think that benefits everybody. I think that's something that's very good, including for the employees, to have a dialogue with our friends in Tallahassee. So again, overall, I thought it went very well, and I think I left like at about 3 o'clock, and I'm the type of guy that when I leave from Tallahassee, there's a lot of places I stop at, so I didn't get home until about 9 o'clock or so, because that's just me. I stop at a lot of places. But I thought it went well, and so any comments or questions from the board? Okay, great. Just wanted to update folks. And tomorrow I will be having, along with Mr. Drainville, we have another town hall with our HART employees, because again, I want to make sure that they're kept abreast of all this. That's so important. They got to know, number one, that they're valued and that their mission will continue, et cetera. Something else, and I'm the kind of guy, I like to have positivity. I think that's very important. And when we look at our mission here at HART, especially the folks who make our mission work, the day-to-day, everyday workers, our mechanics, our bus drivers, et cetera, there's a lot of positivity there, but also the people that we serve. And I wanted to start a campaign on a couple of those great members of our community who HART serves every day, who are so very pivotal. And this is Autism Awareness Month. Yesterday was World Autism Awareness Day, and this is Autism Awareness Month. And we in the city of Tampa, with the help with the leadership of, I should say, Mayor Jane Castor, have done a great deal for disabilities, and starting before with our prior mayor, Bob Buckhorn. And I had a couple of things that I wanted to push for this organization that have, I think, no real fiscal impact, et cetera, that do a lot, which is, number one, to have a public, I don't want to call it public relations campaign, but to promote those people with disabilities, whether it's intellectual disabilities, whether it's physical disabilities, who use our services. I was talking to a couple of folks who I'm good friends with, a young man by the name of Nick Altieri, who has Down syndrome, comes from an amazing family, and Nick works with our public defender, Julie Holt, and every day Nick gets to his job through HART, and it's a godsend for that family. Also talking to Sam Piazza, who's a good buddy of mine, a young man with Down syndrome. Y'all may have heard of that movie Because of Sam, which is a wonderful movie. I know the mayor's been involved with that, good friends with the director there. And Sam works at PDQ, comes from a wonderful, wonderful family, and they rely on HART. And I want to, get the public to be aware of some of our amazing stories, because that's what HART's all about. And pursuant to that, I wanted to see how HART can better serve this population by having a dialogue with organizations. I've reached out to our friends at Centers for Autism and Related Disabilities, CART at USF, that really just does wonderful work. They do God's work in our community, and reaching out to them and members of the community to work with our HART team on how HART can be better accessible to people with disabilities, not just sensory issues, but physical accessibility issues, common sense things that we can do. There's a saying which is, if by going 50 feet that allows you to go 20 miles, I'll go this 50 feet any day. I think HART can go 50 feet on this issue. So that's something. I don't think I need well, actually, you know what? May I have a motion on that? I don't know if that's appropriate.
You can go ahead and get a motion on that.
Okay, so if I may, I would request for a board member to do, if y'all would be so inclined, a motion to, number one, authorize HART to begin dialogue and talks with Centers for Autism and Related Disabilities in furthering this project of further making HART autism and disability friendly. Again, to the extent that there are things that we can do, and there always are things that every institution can do, and to maybe have that come back to us at the meeting we're in April, let's say in July, and if we need more time, that's totally fine. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Schisler, or strike that, I keep on saying that, a motion by Councilman Schisler. I think I heard first Board Member Upshaw Frazier. Yes, ma'am.
And I think it's important, too, for the public to understand that I looked at it before, something like 17% of our budget, almost a fifth of our budget is on paratransit, not to mention the usual service that we give that is also used by people with disabilities. So I'd like to recognize that. And as well, the county has the Sunshine Service, which is quite robust, serving a lot of the county. So I just like to recognize that, because I think few people understand that we do, such a large portion of our budget is dedicated to that specifically, and it doesn't get that recognition.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I think maybe we just need a little more specificness on the motion, because I think it should be twofold. One, what we can do to better serve, but then also another one, an awareness of what HART does now, and that will bring awareness to the autism and other disabilities community. So
Yes.
I would look at it as twofold.
Yes. Excuse me, yes, ma'am. So if the maker of the motion is fine with that, which is number one, to specifically, and I don't want to make the motion on behalf of anyone, but if I may, a friendly suggestion, an action plan to work with CART at USF on ways in which we can improve access, disability, accommodations for people with, in this case specifically, autism, and with other members of the community, and then for a public awareness campaign. And again, to come back to us at that date, I think I said in July. Is that fine with the maker of the motion? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and lastly, if I may, on this, obviously, for those of y'all who know me, it's a very important issue. My oldest brother, Juan, is intellectually disabled, so I know a lot of his friends. Juan doesn't happen to use the HART bus, but I know a lot of his friends and folks that my family knows and loves a lot who are really dependent on HART. And again, and these are families that are lower income families, working class families, middle income families, upper income, upper middle, whatever families, and they're all dependent on HART because it's such a godsend for them. So I'll stop talking, and if you don't mind doing the roll call.
Chair Viera?
Yes.
Director Owen?
Yes.
Director Castor?
Yes.
Director Frazier?
Yes.
Director Hudson?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Myers?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
Director Wolstall?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Board. And that's it from me. And next we go to General Counsel Report.
Good morning, David Smith here to speak on behalf of General Counsel on the issues on your agenda. The first is the interim CEO employment agreement. For those of you who have been here a while, this is the same interim employment agreement we used with Jeff Seward, and it has had some modifications in it, and I'd like to point those out so you'll know exactly what the issues are that you will be considering. I believe, well, let me just go right to that. First of all, Mr. Drainville has agreed to do both jobs. He will continue in his job as Officer Chief Maintenance and Transportation, as well as doing the CEO job. So he will be handling both jobs on the interim basis. That's an important fact to know because it's a lot of work. Now, one of the other material considerations is the term of employment has been made much more flexible. You have an initial term of 3 months, upon which this board can terminate the agreement with 30 days' notice. We found there's difficulties in sometimes terminating these agreements, and we wanted to make sure, at least on an interim basis, we would have something that's a little more facile for this board to work with, and Mr. Drainville is fine with that. Addition is the compensation. Mr. Drainville was making currently $187,000. The CEO is currently making $287,000. So in addition to his current task, he will be performing the CEO task and is willing to do so for $240,000. And that's the number that is in the agreement we're proposing today. He'll also retain all his accrued paid time off, sick leave, et cetera. That's a fairly standard provision. I don't think that would disappear even if we didn't put it in there, so we have made sure it's clear. So those are the primary conditions, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? Comments? Okay. And Mr. Smith, do we need a motion to approve that salary?
I think they delegated it to you, but I'd
Yeah.
rather this board itself act, so I think a motion to approve.
Yeah,
the
and in
contract.
transparency, I did discuss this issue with Mr. Drainville. We went back and forth on some issues and whatnot, and I see Board Member Wassel. Go ahead, sir.
The contract isn't linkable in the agenda, so I haven't seen it yet. I would like to see the actual contract, and also thank you for being willing to reduce the overall salary. I thought what was in place was way too high for the bottom line of this organization. But I would like to see the contract before I place a vote.
Okay, and so and thank you for that, sir. So, Mr. Smith, is there any way that we can either vote on this, if we vote on this next month, if the board feels that it needs to see the contract, or, in other words, what are our options?
I would be happy to present the contract, but he may want time to read it and think about it and not make a decision today.
Yes.
But I'm happy to give it to him.
I don't want to hold up progress. I'd just like to see the contract.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
I would like to see the contract as well.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, so you're going to link it, right? Besides just hand it
I
out?
don't know why it wasn't linked. I don't do any of that. I'm surprised you didn't have it.
Yeah. Thank you. Board Member Myers and then Board Member Caston.
Thank you. My only concern is, I think in the current contract, LeGrand, she had some bonuses if she achieved something that took her salary up to $287,000. I don't think that was the original salary that she began with.
That's
If I
not
can
in this
recall.
contract. You have the ability to, as a matter of course, provide a bonus if you want to, but there's not a guaranteed or entitled bonus concept in this.
No, I'm not talking about in the current contract we're discussing now, because his salary, looking at $187,000 to be increased to $240,000, that's a $60,000 increase, pretty
For
much.
both jobs, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, for both jobs. I think it could be a little bit lower. I'm just concerned about the larger salary amount, that's all.
Understood.
Thank you.
And yet, and again, we had private discussions on that, and after, again, I don't want to get into the private discussions, but I think it's ultimately something that, under all, in my opinion, under all circumstances, is reasonable, I guess, if you will, again, after having private discussions. Mayor, did you want to say anything?
I was just going to say that we can make it retroactive.
Yes.
You know, not necessarily vote, but make it retroactive once we've all seen it.
Yes, okay.
As
So-
it stands right now, your agreement is effective as of the date that he assumed the position, which was, I believe, the last meeting date.
So is it the consensus of the board then to continue this to next month with the idea that it will be retroactive once approved? Okay, okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. I also have the next item on the agenda.
Go ahead, sir.
Was there a motion and a vote? I'm sorry.
No, tell you what, want to make that into a motion that we put it on the agenda for next month with the idea that once approved, if approved, it will be retroactive. It is. Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Owen, seconded by Commissioner or strike that, by Mayor Castor. Roll call, please.
Chair Viera?
Yes.
Director Owen?
Yes.
Director Coster?
Yes.
Director Frazier?
Yes.
Director Hudson?
Yes.
Director Johnson?
Yes.
Director Kemp?
Yes.
Director Myers?
Yes.
Director Schisler?
Yes.
Director Wolstel?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I'm looking at my phone because I've received 3 messages, 2 yesterday and 1 this morning from counsel for the prior CEO. So that has an impact on what I'm about to tell you. I want to update you on what those communications were about and then see if there's any questions. I think it was requested we have this on the agenda in case there had been some questions in the interim. I would also caution you, we still have not heard any rebuttal from the subject of the investigation, and obviously we can't make any final determination until you have an opportunity to hear that information. The emails that I received this morning and yesterday do a couple different things. We've had a rather expansive public records request, which we are going to attempt to clarify. Among others, there was all communication essentially ever between Mr. Adams and HART. Well, he's been an employee or an outside counsel for this organization for a long time. I don't even think that's the intent of the request. So we're going to have outside labor and employment counsel, Cindy Townsend, handle these issues because this could be preparatory to litigation, and we want to make sure we handle these things in a way that minimizes the risk to HART. So there's that issue. I also received an email this morning, I believe it was, that stated that they're of the opinion the entire report should be stricken on the basis or on the grounds that ostensibly the individual undertaking the report, Mr. Adams, was biased, and therefore the report is biased and should be stricken. There's also, as some of you know, there's been some communications with respect to alleged bias on behalf of some of the members of the board, some of the directors. So we have not yet received a motion with the specificity we need to be able to respond to that, nor have I received a motion with the specificity I'd like to see with respect to the bias allegation. I'm just advising you of that fact so you don't read about it in the paper, because these demands to us are public records if someone's going to request them. So that is essentially it. I am dubious about our time frame simply because of the scope of the requests, plus also motions with respect to bias and motions with regard to not an impartial tribunal are going to require some consideration, some deliberation. We're going to obviously involve Cindy Townsend in that analysis because this is all probably preparatory to a lawsuit. So I, again, update you and caution you. We need to be careful what we say. I have too often read some of my comments in pleadings that I really wish had not quite been characterized the way they had. So be careful what you say. Sometimes the other side doesn't exactly get it right, but they can use what you say and make it look a lot worse than it really is. So with that having been said, if there's any questions at this point, I'm here to try to answer them, and I'd like to obviously keep it in a very constrained format.
Any questions or comments by board members? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. You're mentioning motions, and I'm familiar with motions in the litigation sense, but who is the arbiter of the motions, and where are the motions going?
Well, you're absolutely correct. The emails basically asked, I would like to file a motion, with whom do I file them? Okay. That's a question I don't currently know the answer to. I would assume it would be the clerk of the board, so we have it as part of the record of the board. Now, who rules on that? I think ultimately this body has to rule on that. And so I think we, general counsel, are going to have to evaluate the motions, make sure we have all the information necessary to present them to you so you can then determine whether you think the report should be stricken because it's biased or whether selected directors should recuse themselves because of bias. So, and I will help you understand what the legal aspects of those are. As you know, there is a presumption in favor of participation of directors, just like there is for the city council and the county commission. If you have an actual conflict, then and only then can you fail to vote. So there's a bias in favor of voting unless there's a real sound reason why you shouldn't. So we'll go through all of that when the time comes, but right now, I think there's your preliminary skirmishes.
Okay. And I would appreciate, it would help me at least, if we saw whatever their rules regulating how we are to, receive and adjudicate these motions as a board.
I don't believe
from
we
outside
have
counsel.
any rules per se. I don't think this, I've been dealing with your policies for over a decade. I do not recall any rules to this effect. So what we generally do is we follow the concepts of due process and follow what most administrative panels employ. So we can provide that to you. It's an analog, and we'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
Board Member Wassel, then Board Member Hudson. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have no obligation to allow this other attorney to allow this to turn into Judge Judy or Jerry Springer. That's not what this is. We are the governing body of this board, and we can hire and fire CEOs as we see fit. This other council has no insight or power or authority or control to demand that anybody who is elected or appointed by elected officials on this board to make a decision or voice their opinion about legally sound information that we paid a substantial amount of taxpayer money funded towards. So I don't understand, maybe he's not used to these specific types of situations, but there is no protocol, no mandate, no legal authority for him to even make such an inquiry to this board. This board can take information and make decisions as it sees fit, and then if they disagree, they can take that decision to court, and then a judge can decide whether or not he agrees with this body. Thank you very much.
Generally, that's absolutely accurate. This board has what we call plenary power. The problem is, and Mr. Wenzel's been doing this for over 45 years, and at one point, he was general counsel for USF. He is very familiar with labor and employment processes. This is a challenge to your process. It's not a challenge that fits within the rubric of your process. It's a challenge to you, your ability to decide, and the process itself. And the idea is that of due process. Whether this is a predicate for a 1983 action or not, I do not know. But you can always bring a 1983 action of governmental activity. This is a governmental body. So I'm presenting this information to you, so you know about it. And by virtue of us advising you in this regard, you would have what's known as qualified immunity for 1983 action because you're following advice of counsel. I don't want to get too esoteric here, but this is a very convoluted sort of process. It's not the norm. And under the norm, you do exactly as Commissioner Wassel indicated, and this board would proceed. But I'm just telling you, this is I don't want to prejudge the issue, but this is definitely an effort to create a potential claim down the road regarding the process.
Thank you, sir. Anything else, sir? Okay. So go ahead, sir.
I think it would be helpful, since we're not going to see each other again, I think before the special meeting, to have prior to that, maybe some type of memo that just outlines kind of what our roles and responsibilities are for that meeting, like with the existing process we have. I mean, understanding that forethought of litigation is something that we and you all, I know, are mindful of, but I think going into that May meeting, to make that as efficient as we can make it, just some understanding of what our role is, based on, again, the process as it should be, not as perhaps other litigants would like it to be.
Certainly, and we will do that.
Okay, great.
Partly, as I indicated, 2 emails came in yesterday and 1 came in this morning. So Ms. Mandel and I have not had an opportunity even to discuss the significance of these issues and what we would recommend we advise you in regard to those issues. So we will do so. That is what our job will be, is to advise this tribunal and to protect this tribunal as it discharges its responsibilities.
Any other questions? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I've been where you're at many times, and it's a tough situation when you're trying to advise a board, especially with lots of different personalities. The only thing I would say to this board is, you're absolutely right. What attorneys do on the other ends of these is they try to create a record for litigation. And a good lawyer does that. That's just what a good lawyer does. So, the good thing is that they agreed to this hearing date, to what I call a final hearing date for. What the other issue would be is if they're requesting an abnormal amount of discovery documents, that could cause a reason for them to say, we want to continue it. It's a very, very common practice by lawyers. So I don't know if he's doing that, and I'm not going to pretend to state that I know, because you've had those communications. But if they are asking for something unreasonable, typically, a protective order gets filed and you go before a judge, but that's not the case here. So we'll probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, have an opportunity at that final hearing. If they say, hey, we still requested X, Y, and Z, you're not giving us due process, we would have the opportunity to make that decision if it was reasonable, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I think you will have that opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. And then, Commissioner Myers, go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. For our next meeting, would you come back, what was as stated on on March 27th? We had a report, the findings, but we don't know, for what was caused, could you give us a summary report when you come back? What was the cause actually written, and what would be without cause? So as we decide to make our decision at our May meeting, we would know what to do.
Yes, ma'am, and that is the critical consideration here. That's how the due process comes up. You are certainly free to terminate without cause anytime you want to. When you terminate without cause, certain cash considerations flow to the CEO. But if you can terminate with cause, those cash considerations by and large disappear. So that's why this is an issue, and that's why due process is a factor. And that's why this gets a little complicated. If I'm understanding you correctly, I think what you're asking me to do is look at the report and say, if, I've used this word, if the allegations in that report are proven to be the case, not rebutted by the CEO, and not provided other substantial competent evidence to rebut that, what would constitute cause?
Correct.
I think that's what you're asking me. That's
Yes.
a very legitimate question, very important question, and we will look at that and we'll try to provide you that summary. Like, this doesn't constitute cause even if true. This would constitute cause if true. Again, we don't know what's true yet,
Okay,
but we'll do that. Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
And thank you. Then we have Board Member Kemp, Board Member Wassel, then Board Member Upshaw Frazier. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. So at this moment, a final hearing here is set for what date?
I don't think the date's been finalized. I know there's been an effort to obtain information from this board to see who's available. One last email I got, I think yesterday, was he's unavailable May 3rd, but I think weren't looking at May 3rd because that was the county commission date anyway, I believe. It looks like it'll be May 2nd at 1 o'clock. I think
Okay,
that's when it'll be set for.
okay, because I think it's extremely important not to have any, we shouldn't push it out further. This was originally going to be 1 week after, so I'd be very concerned about it not taking place at that time, hanging over our heads. I also would very much appreciate, I don't know if other people would, because I've wondered what rules we were governing this under, and I know Director Frazier asked that, so I'd like to understand where we were going with that. So I'd also like to see what, because I hear references to quasi-judicial, which, so I would like to understand what, when we move forward, that I think it's just very good to outline, as Director Hudson, I don't have to restate it, but and as Director Myers said, in terms of outlining for everyone, cause and no cause, a memo, understanding, and have this meeting, I would not want to put it off any further. So I just think we just have to move forward, and I can't say that strongly enough. The last time we had an investigation, the time before this, that went on for months, I really wanted this one 60 days. It got just a little bit more than that, and, we have our report. And I'd just like to remind everyone that we also have a third part of this report that he was going to tell us on structural issues, systemic issues, which I could talk about for a long time, but I really want to get that back because I think we have big systemic holes procedurally in what on where we go with this. So I just like to remind everybody about that because I think that will be a third part that we asked about and really need to process here through this board to really look at how we move forward.
I believe that's on the May meeting, but also to address your concerns, this body will be acting in a quasi-judicial capacity. In essence, applying those processes that a judiciary typically applies. Even though you don't have any articulated rules of procedure in your policies, we are subject to the rules of procedure required by the Constitution when you have to accord due process. So we'll try to make that as clear to you as possible. I will tell you, there's a lot of debate among lawyers often about what these things mean. So I hate to tell you, there's nothing that's apodictic in what we do in the practice of law. I also suggest it might be that Cindy Townsend will be the person who will advise you in that regard, because this could very well be a predicate to litigation. I don't want to get litigation counsel crosswise when they can participate in this process and make sure they are as favorably developed at everything that happens as possible.
Thank you. Commissioner, go ahead, sir.
A couple of things, and to Commissioner Meyer's question, specifically one thing that Attorney Adams had said was on one of the slides that it was a clear violation of state law, and where he highlighted those things, if those could be clearly spelled out, that would probably be helpful. To Commissioner Kemp's point, about 1 month of every delay is about another $30,000, which is a huge challenge that we need to be very honest about to the taxpayers. Third, since we are now saying that this is quasi-judicial, this board should definitely motion to implement a structure. However much time was given to Mr. Adams, we should only offer that limited amount of time, allow time for rebuttals from our counsel, and then time for debate. That way it can't get out of hand and go needlessly for hours with unnecessary back and forths. And finally, is there a reason why it's not Mr. Adams who is so engaged in this investigation that's not representing? Is he just not that type of counsel? Why are we switching counsel from Mr. Adams to Mr. Townsend?
The issue in litigation is going to be his bias, among other things.
Okay.
So for him to represent a client when he is the object of the allegations wouldn't work.
So he's only not it because their counsel has said, well, we feel there's bias?
No, he's only not it because he's not been retained for that either. Cindy Townsend was retained for the purpose of any litigation that would come from this. And that was done because you would not be able to have the investigator represent the body. It just would cause, it puts you at a tremendous disadvantage in litigation. I'll just tell you that.
But obviously, he's going to be able to walk her through all of his findings.
Absolutely, and he
Perfect.
probably will be a witness.
So the board, though, probably should consider creating a structure for that special meeting and it being very detailed, making sure that they got equal opportunity, but no more opportunity than Mr. Adams had, and time for rebuttals. Thank you.
And one of the important conflicts that lawyers have is you cannot be a witness while representing your client in that same matter. So it's just the rules that regulate the Florida bar.
And your comments are well taken in the sense that we have to have procedure, obviously, for that. I would assume our counsel will take care of that, and we can give input, correct?
We will take care of that. We will also consult with Ms. Townsend.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Board Member Upshaw Frazier.
Just to follow up on what Director Owens was talking about, so these requests that are pending but are overbroad right now, that are seeking some type of resolution from us, we're not going to meet before the special meeting. And are we supposed to be resolving those, or say they clarify them before then? Are we supposed to be resolving
We will
those?
clarify those. He makes whatever request he makes, but we need to make sure we understand exactly what he wants, and we need to make sure they're not overly broad to the extent we can narrow the time period, particularly time periods for public records. If you don't put time periods on public records, that becomes almost an unlimited process. So we're going to clarify that and Ms. Townsend will be involved in that process. So that's, you will get the results of that as opposed to acting as the arbiter of these rules in that sense.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
One
Yes,
last,
ma'am.
thank you. Will we get the final report, your summary reports of everything we're discussing, at least by April 28th? So we'll have enough time to review everything prior to the special meeting? Instead of
I believe you're
receiving that
asking us to have
Sunday?
that to you April 28th. We will have it to you by April 28th.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Anything else for general counsel?
No, sir.
There
Anything
you
else,
go.
Julia?
That was a heavy plate you had today. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. Next are information items for 8A through 8F. Are there any questions on these items from the board? Okay, we'll move forward. Oh, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I don't have a question as much as a statement, because I looked through these and I'm very familiar. And one thing I mentioned to Mr. Drainville, and one thing for us, I think, is to make sure we keep our eye on the Operations and Maintenance Center. I can tell you, it was a huge priority when I first came here. It virtually wasn't talked about for 2 or 3 years. It's very important that we keep a high profile, a focus on that. It's extremely important for the future of HART. So if I look at this and go, which one is different? I'll have to say it is the heavy maintenance, 8E, and maybe in the future to get an update. I'd really like to keep that in our, be watching that and be, letting it drop off our radar again.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments, questions? Yes, sir.
I know some of these reports were prepared for prior meetings, so just had a question for Mr. Drainville, whether the bathroom situation's been resolved. I know there was a lot of pressure
Yeah.
from the community on that.
Yeah, so on the restrooms, the 3 main MTC, UATC, and Net Park have been completed.
Okay, great.
And there are ongoing, all the remaining 3 are all being worked on now, so they should be completed in the next month or 2, so. We'll have a report if the board so wishes, so.
Thank you, sir. Anything else? Okay. Next, we go to HART Board Committee reports. They're included in the packet under Section 9, and reports from HART Board member representatives are also included under Section 10, and monthly information reports are under Section 11. Do we have any questions or concerns on these sections? Okay, we move forward. Is there any old business? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if it's old business or new business. I think it's good to have town hall meetings with employees. I also wonder about other board members being notified and being able to attend and
Absolutely.
be part of those meetings. So
Yeah.
I think it has to be noticed, and I think we'd have to, I don't know exactly when they are, so I think it'd be good for us to be noticed, but also publicly noticed so that there is, no conflicts or problems.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. Sometimes in, rushing to do things, so to speak, you forget little things, and that's the little thing's a big thing. So without a doubt, I have one tomorrow, and I don't think it's problematic for anybody to be there so long as they're not there when I'm speaking, correct, Ms. Mandel?
Well, the thing to be concerned about is if there's any discussion points that would potentially be items that can come back to this board in terms
Yeah.
of having more than one member there. So, and it hasn't been noticed, and I don't know that if, for tomorrow, that would be
No,
sufficient time.
absolutely. Yeah,
But what
better
you
be
may
safe.
want to do is if there's any ones in the future, to ask if there's any other members that want to attend, and that way we can make sure to at least have 48 hours to notice them.
And that's a great point, absolutely. So what I'll do is then for the next one, we'll do that. You have my word on that. And that'll be probably like in early May or something. I promised them that I'd come back. I spoke to them maybe like a week and a half ago or so, that after my meeting in Tallahassee, I'd update them. So the next one, we'll do that, promise.
And just for the record, because I heard a comment about it this morning, and I just think, again, we do have this systemic issues coming back, but, and I've stated this before, but it's pretty much, we've heard all kinds of conflicting reports over time from different employees about situations. And I think it's important to do what is standard operating procedure in a lot of public institutions, including PSTA. I think they have a consulting team in that does, questionnaires, focus groups, and everything. Basically either, I think, yearly. And for a time, we had that here. But unless you get, it's a few people that are willing to maybe speak at the mic or submit something, and then lots of anonymous reports from the outside about what's happening. But, without that, I think in terms of the organization and what's happening in the organization is very difficult unless we have something like that from the outside, and that is standard operating procedure at other places. So I just like employees also to know that, so that this board could have more of a view on the organizational health of the health of the organization, and start to know that. And I think it's important we can have town hall meetings, but it's important for employees to just generally be anonymous or have a source that they can trust, because, I know, many, I would say most employees, particularly with the situation we've had here, but in any place, almost, really doesn't want to necessarily, come forward and be open about it. And honestly, some HART employees are non-employees now because or believe so because of what they spoke publicly. So I think it's really important to have those mechanisms in place as a regular way to review internally what's happening. And it's not something it's something that's very standard and would give us a look for the future. So I think I can imagine that might come back as something we might do, but I'd also like to assure employees with regards to that.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Any new business? Okay. There being none, this concludes regular business for today. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.